What if I told you that in Slavic folklore, the most terrifying entity isn't a demon, but an old woman who lives in a hut that walks on chicken legs? Baba Yaga stands at the threshold between worlds, half goddess, half witch, testing all who dare approach her fence of human skulls. Her iron teeth gleam when she smiles, one leg is bare bone, and she flies through the forest in a mortar, steering with a pestle, erasing her tracks with a broom. Neither purely evil nor good, she devours the unworthy but rewards the brave with magical gifts. For centuries, her impossible hut has been turning, waiting for those who must face her question. Did you come of your own will, or by compulsion? In the old Slavic imagination, the forest was never mere timber and soil. It was alive, restless, waiting, a threshold where the human world unraveled and another pressed close. Villages ended abruptly at its border, as though the land itself dared not intrude. Beyond the last ploughed furrow, the last toll of the church bell, a hush began. It was not silence, but a listening stillness, thick with breath. Step beneath the canopy, and the hush bent around you like a net. Those who walked here spoke of wrongnesses too small to name but too sharp to ignore. A crow circling on the ground but leaving no prints. A gust of air that lifted hair, yet left the leaves unmoved. A toad with bark instead of skin. Such things warned that the rules frayed, that deeper laws, older than soil or scripture, held sway. And once the forest had swallowed a traveller, it did not easily return them. Look back once, and the road behind had already vanished, folded away like paper into fire. The deeper the path, the older the trees. They leaned, groaning under the weight of seasons, their bark torn by claws or knives or something nameless. Mushrooms crowded the trunks in rows like jagged teeth. Resin bled and hardened into amber beads, golden tears of centuries trapped in a single breath. The air thickened, tasting of iron, grave earth, and the green rot of things too long kept in shadow. It pressed close to the lungs, heavy, insistent, as though the forest were trying to breathe through its trespassers. And then, sudden as a wound, the clearing. Too bright, too raw, as if the trees recoiled from it. Here stood the impossibility, a hut squatting on scaly legs. A cabin, blackened with tar, its windows glinting like half-shut eyes. Where stone or clay should have rooted it, claws gouged the soil, flexing, stamping, shifting as though the ground itself were not solid enough. The structure groaned and tilted, restless as a chained beast. It turned, slow and deliberate, as though searching for prey. Around it stretched a fence not of pine or oak, but of femurs, spines and jawbones lashed upright, each crowned with a skull. The skulls did not sit empty. Their sockets smouldered with steady flames, casting a light that warmed nothing and forgave nothing. In that merciless glow, the clearing shone unnatural white. Grass bent away from the fence. Gnats drifted into the fire and did not burn, but vanished with a faint hiss. Some said one post always stood bare, waiting for the skull of the next who failed. The hut never faced its visitors. It turned, spinning on its claws, creaking until the air itself swayed with dizziness. Those who knew the incantation could still it. Hut, hut, turn your back to the forest, your front to me. Speak it right. And the cabin stooped, lowered itself, and faced the intruder with a groan of timbers. Speak it wrong, or not at all, and the house never ceased turning, whirling until courage collapsed into panic. To chase it was useless. The hut was a predator that liked to be pursued. Even in ink, her name bore strangeness. In 1755, the scholar Mikhail Lomonosov set out to shape Russian grammar into order. He listed the Slavic gods with their Roman twins, Perun beside Jupiter, Veles beside Mercury. Yet when he wrote Baba Yaga, no Latin counterpart followed. She stood alone, unpaired, unmatched, untranslatable. Already she was too strange for neat pantheons, too singular to fit Rome's tidy cage. The first written mention marks her not as derivative, but as unique, a figure who could not be mirrored. Inside, the air shifts from cold to suffocating warmth. Smoke clings to the beams, laced with dill, garlic, and something sour-sweet, like milk soured past redemption. A stove crouches in one corner, like a beast that never sleeps, its mouth ringed with soot. Along the walls, herbs hang in brittle ropes, yarrow, wormwood, nettle, leaves that crumble if touched. Stranger still are the hands, not attached to any arm, but scuttling across the floor, pale and nimble, carrying logs, setting bowls, vanishing when the skulls outside dim, reappearing when they blaze. At the far end stretches a bed broader than the room itself, a raft of planks and furs. Upon it lies something impossibly long, stretching from one corner to the other, as though the body itself were the architecture. A nose scratches the ceiling beams, grey skin blending with the smoke. One foot dangles, thin as a pestle, the heel iron hard. A bony leg juts from the coverlets like a tree root torn from the earth. The body shifts, sighs, and the stove stirs as if echoing its master. When the voice comes, it carries the weight of centuries, low, rasping, dry as autumn leaves crushed beneath frost. Fie, fie, the Russian scent. It was never here before, yet now it arrives on its own feet. Did you come of your own will, or by compulsion? The question is always the same. Some answer boldly, some falter. The wise know it is not the words that matter, but the steadiness of the voice that carries them. Those who speak well may yet live long enough to hear her terms. Those who falter too soon find their skull burning quietly on the fence outside, another lamp for the clearing, another post crowned with fire. Inside her hut the air never rests. It shifts, sighs, thickens, like a tide rising and falling against invisible shores. The smoke that curls from the stove does not climb upward as it should. It coils sideways, slides along beams, clings to rafters like a living thing. Some visitors swore they saw faces in it, pale outlines of eyes and lips, caught for an instant before the haze dissolved into the shadows. The smell is heavier here than in the clearing. Smoke and herbs, yes, but also rust, clay, and something vaguely sweet, like a wound wrapped too long in cloth. Baba Yaga's hut is no human dwelling. It is both womb and grave. The stove crouching in the corner is vast enough to swallow a man whole, and the dark hollow of its mouth seems to breathe. Folk whispered that she stretched her victims on a shovel and slid them into that fire, where the coals glowed white as bone. Others said the oven was not an end but a threshold, that what entered did not die but changed, transformed into smoke, ash, or something else that still moved in the forest afterward. Her tools lie scattered across the floor, a pestle, heavy as a club, blackened at the end, a mortar broad enough to cradle a child, its rim stained darker than wood should stain, and always, near the door, a broom of birch twigs bound tight with red cord. None of these are ornaments. In the old pagan rites, mortars ground grain to flour, pestles struck like hammers, brooms swept clean the sacred spaces before ceremony. In her hands, the tools of hearth and harvest grow teeth. She steps into the mortar and steers with the pestle, flying low through the treetops. She sweeps away her passage with the broom, erasing every trace. To follow her is to pursue emptiness. The air itself betrays the pursuer. When she wishes, she is untrackable, as if she never passed at all. Her body is a riddle of exaggerations. In some tales she is vast, lying across the stove from corner to corner, her nose scraping the rafters, her breasts drooping like sacks of grain, her foot planted with iron heel against the threshold. In others, she is shriveled, a bundle of bones draped in rags, barely taller than the broom she carries. But always the same details recur: the iron teeth, sharpened and gleaming when she grins, the leg of bone, naked of flesh, proving her kinship with the grave. She is not wholly of the living. Part of her already belongs to death, and it shows itself without shame. When visitors enter, she does not rise. She lies sprawled across her bed, eyes half shut, as if she has been waiting a very long time and has grown bored. Yet she never mistakes a guest for anything but what they are. She lifts her nose and the skin of the world seems to tremble. The Russian scent, she hisses. Always the same words. She smells out the trespasser's very blood. Some say her nostrils quiver until they touch the ceiling beams, as if she could inhale the whole room. There is no hiding from that scent. No cloak, no spell. No silence is enough. Her questions, too, are always the same. Did you come of your own will? Or by compulsion? It is not a riddle, but a measure. She wants to weigh the heart. The clever know there is no correct answer, only one that shows strength without arrogance, humility without cowardice. Fail to find that balance, and her mouth opens like the stove's, iron teeth catching the meager light. The fence outside waits for one more skull. Succeed, and the game changes. She will set the first of her impossible tasks. Those tasks never vary in their cruelty. One visitor is ordered to separate a heap of millet from a heap of sand before morning. Another must fetch water in a sieve, not spilling a drop. Another is told to spin a thread fine enough to pass through the eye of a needle that does not exist. Alone, no mortal can succeed, but the stories say that help often arrives. From the doll, a dying mother gave her daughter. From ants and birds summoned by unseen hands. From a spark of wit or patience that proves the soul ready for the test. Her tasks are not designed to be fair. They are designed to break those who are unready and reveal those who are not. Beyond the impossible labors waits the most terrible gift: fire. She does not give it freely. It burns in the skulls that crown her fence. An eternal flame lit in sockets that no longer blink. Sometimes she plucks one from its post, places it on a stick, and thrusts it into the hands of the supplicant. Sometimes she forces them to carry it all the way home, the burning gaze fixed on their back. That fire kills as easily as it warms. More than one cruel family, waiting smugly for a child's return, found themselves consumed in its glow. The skull's eyes do not lie. They see through skin, through laughter, through false love. They blaze with judgment, and judgment is never merciful. It is said that in some tales she is 3, not 1. 3 sisters, each Baba Yaga, each dwelling in her own hut, each waiting at a farther edge of the world. A traveler might visit one and be told, "I do not know, but seek my sister." Then another, and finally the eldest, who alone holds the answer. Each sets her tests, each weighs the heart. It is an ordeal of endurance, a pilgrimage through layers of power. And in the end, when the hero proves worthy, the reward is always the same: a gift that makes survival possible, a fire, a horse, a word of knowledge that no one else could give. 3 faces of one riddle, 3 turns of the same key. She is helper, devourer, mother, judge. She embodies the contradiction of the crone, feared for her hunger, sought for her wisdom. Andreas Johns once wrote that she could be read as cloud, moon, death, snake, bird, or goddess. But the old people did not need scholars to tell them that. They already knew she was all of these at once. In the crackle of the stove, in the turning of the hut, in the gnashing of her teeth, they saw what she was: a being too vast for one shape, too old for one story. To step across her threshold is to leave the human world. The mortar The broom, the iron teeth, these are not toys of superstition. They are emblems of a deeper truth. Baba Yaga is the keeper of the crossing. Her hut is not simply built on the edge of the forest. It is the edge. To enter is to pass into the realm where the dead lean close and the living tremble. Whether she devours or delivers depends not on her whim, but on the readiness of the soul who knocks on her door. The forest itself seems to lean inward, listening to each visitor's fate. Those who fail leave nothing but screams and smoke. Those who succeed walk out carrying her fire, her word, her gift, changed beyond recognition. Few dare the journey, fewer still return. Yet the stories always circle back to her, as rivers circle back to the sea. For in the Slavic world, no true tale of transformation can begin without the witch who lives in the house that walks. The forest clears, and the hut waits. Always it waits. On chicken legs, it paces, it turns. It groans with a weight older than the trees that surround it. To look upon it is to feel the familiar split open. A cabin should be a place of safety, a hearth, a roof against the cold. Here that shape has been taken and twisted until it mocks its own purpose. It is no home. It is a sentinel, a trap, a riddle. Its timbers sweat with tar, its windows glint like suspicious eyes, and beneath it, claws tear at the earth as if the hut were tasting its prison, deciding whether to stay or stride away into deeper shadow. The fence of bones seals the clearing like a boundary. Human femurs lashed upright, vertebrae stacked like prayer beads, skulls blazing with steady fire. Each skull light flickers without warmth, illuminating every knot of wood, every blade of grass bent by the hut's shifting weight. To pass through that fence is to step beyond life's ordinary protections. Behind you, the world of villages, fields, and firesides. Ahead, the land of the other world, where the living and the dead meet in dangerous commerce. The hut does not simply stand, it turns. Slowly at first, then faster, creaking, whirling, spinning until dizziness grips the clearing. It will never present its door freely. To enter, a visitor must know the words, the hinge to turn its will. Hut, hut, turn your back to the forest, your front to me. Speak it with trembling or pride, it matters not. The house knows truth from falsehood. It groans, stoops, lowers itself as though in reluctant obedience. The door yawns wide, and the air of the other world presses outward like breath. This ritual of approach, this demand for the proper words, makes the hut more than a dwelling. It is a gate. One cannot stumble inside by accident. One must be tested, chosen, initiated. To speak the charm is to declare willingness to cross the line, to lay aside the comfort of ordinary law and submit to the law of Baba Yaga. What lies within has always been told in fragments. In some tales, the hut is small and close, with a stove at one end and a bed at the other, every surface hung with herbs or bones. In others, it stretches impossibly vast, a hall large enough for shadows to hold court. Always there is a stove, black and wide enough to consume a body whole. Always there is the bed where the witch lies sprawled, her long limbs reaching to the corners, her nose grazing the beams. And always, somewhere near, her tools, the mortar, the pestle, the broom. Their presence transforms the hut from dwelling into shrine, each object carrying meaning older than the tales themselves. The mortar and pestle are household tools, meant for grinding grain, preparing meals, sustaining life. In Baba Yaga's grasp, they become weapons and vehicles. She rides the mortar through the sky, steering with the pestle as if it were a rudder. The broom, once a tool of cleanliness, becomes an instrument of concealment, sweeping away her tracks so no one may follow. Domestic tools, twisted, inverted, liberated from the hearth to serve a different law, the law of death, of pursuit, of untamed power. Where women once used them to nourish and protect, Baba Yaga wields them to destroy or to test. Ethnographers suggest echoes of older rites here. Among the pagan Slavs, mortars and pestles featured in ceremonies of fertility and sacrifice, symbols of grinding and transformation, of life broken down and remade. Baba Yaga's tools remember those rites. They turn creation into annihilation, and yet annihilation itself is a form of transformation. Nothing passes through her domain unchanged. The hut itself, with its chicken legs, may be the strangest image of all. Scholars have searched for its roots among the Finno-Ugric peoples, whose storehouses once stood on stilted roots to protect grain from animals and snow. Seen from a distance, those cabins on their upturned stumps resembled huts perched on clawed feet. The memory of such structures, twisted by imagination and fear, may have given rise to Baba Yaga's impossible house. But folklore is not memory alone. In the stories, her hut does not simply stand. It lives, it runs, it spins, it chooses. It is as much a creature as a shelter, as much guardian as home. More than a building, the hut is a symbol of liminality, of crossing between states. Its very motion, back to the forest, front to the seeker, enacts the turning of a key between two worlds. To pass its threshold is to step from the human realm into the domain of spirits and the dead. Every board creaks with the strain of holding that boundary. Every skull lamp glows with the fire of judgment. The hut is not where Baba Yaga happens to live. The hut is Baba Yaga, as much as her bony leg, her iron teeth, her broom. It is her body stretched into architecture, her presence made wood and bone. Within the fence, death is never decoration. Each skull burns with fire stolen from the other world. Each bone post is a promise and a warning. Fail her tasks, and your remains will join them, lighting the way for the next intruder. Succeed, and you may carry one of those skulls away, its flame a gift more dangerous than any curse. The fence does not keep out. It marks the border. It says, here begins what is not yours. Here you are weighed. And what of the fire itself? In Vasilisa's tale, the skull she carries home does not simply provide light. It judges. It stares into the stepmother's soul, and its flames leap higher at what they find. By dawn, nothing remains of cruelty but ash. The fire is not warmth, it is revelation. It exposes, consumes, and purges. To receive it from Baba Yaga is to hold a fragment of her power, the power of death's gaze, the flame that both destroys and delivers. Thus the hut is not only a test of courage, but a mirror. It shows the intruder who they are. Cowards see only a monster spinning on claws, ready to devour them. The brave see a gateway, a trial, perhaps even a source of wisdom, but none leave untouched. To enter is to submit to Baba Yaga's judgment, and judgment does not bend. The earliest written records knew her as singular. When Lomonosov placed her name among gods in his grammar book, she stood unmatched, unpaired. No Roman twin could capture her essence. The gods of thunder and sky could be equated, but Baba Yaga had no counterpart. Even then she bore the mark of uniqueness, a figure whose role was not borrowed, but born of the soil itself. She was already liminal, half goddess, half witch, half death, half life. Her hut reflects that paradox. It is home and tomb, cradle and pyre, door and devourer. For those who cross its threshold, time bends. Outside, day and night march in their proper order. Inside, hours not together, stretch, collapse. 3 riders may pass the clearing, white for dawn, red for noon, black for night, and their circuit marks not a day, but an eternity. Baba Yaga commands them, calls them her faithful servants. Through them, she rules not only space, but time. The hut is her clock. It's turning the motion of hours, its door the hinge of seasons. To step inside is to enter her calendar, and no one leaves before it is finished. The impossible hut is therefore more than backdrop. It is the axis of her power, the body of the threshold itself, it proves that Baba Yaga is not merely a witch who lives in the forest. She is the forest's law, the embodiment of the edge, the ruler of the space where life bleeds into death. Her hut walks because the border itself moves. Her fence burns because death is never far. She waits inside because sooner or later, every traveler comes to her clearing. And when they do, the hut will turn, the fire will blaze, and the question will come, did you arrive of your own will or by compulsion? If the hut is the body of Baba Yaga stretched into timber and claw, then the objects she wields are her bones, her sinew, her weapons. They wait by the threshold, the mortar, the pestle, the broom. To see them lying idle is to mistake their nature. Nothing about her is idle. The mortar is a vessel vast enough to cradle a child, wide as a cradle, deep as a grave. The pestle, blunt and heavy, could grind grain or a skull. Together, they were once the tools of the hearth, the heart of every Slavic household. Grain poured in, pestle crushed, flour rose soft as dust. From flour came bread, from bread came life. Mortar and pestle were the oldest magic, turning seed into sustenance, hunger into survival. In Baba Yaga's hands, that transformation inverts. She climbs into the mortar, stands, and it rises with her, lifting above the trees. She steers with the pestle, beating air as if it were grain, grinding the sky itself into her path. Behind her, the broom sweeps away all trace, erasing the scar she carves across the firmament. What was once meant to create becomes the engine of annihilation. There are whispers that her mortar was not always a tool but a weapon. In old pagan rites, women bore pestles to strike the earth, to awaken fertility, to summon storms. They struck the ground in rhythm, calling life to rise from soil. Baba Yaga remembers, but where they beat the earth to yield crops, she beats it to remind the living of their fragility. She is fertility's shadow, the one who grinds not seed but flesh, not barley but bone. When her mortar passes overhead, crops wilt, milk sours, fire gutters. She brings inversion, the terrible twin of life's promise. The broom completes the trinity, birch twigs bound together with red thread, humble in appearance, terrible in function. In one tail, she sweeps away her tracks across the sky, so no one can follow. In another, she sweeps a yard filled with skulls until it gleams, the broom rasping against bones like a fiddler's bow. It is not just concealment, it is erasure. The broom makes her untouchable, uncatchable, as though the world itself conspires to forget her. Where she passes, memory falters. She moves, and the record of her movement burns away like mist in sunlight. And yet, this is the paradox. The tools remain recognizably domestic. They are not swords, not shields, not the weapons of men at war. They are the implements of women's work, grinding, stirring, sweeping, objects of nourishment, cleanliness, rhythm, daily life. That is the horror. She takes the most familiar shapes of safety and reverses them. The mortar becomes a coffin, the pestle a cudgel, the broom a tool of obliteration. She is the hearth turned inside out, the household mother become the household monster. Her body reflects this inversion as well. In some stories, she is impossibly vast, stretched across the stove, her nose scraping the rafters, her bony leg jutting like a root torn from earth. In others, she is wizened, a skeleton draped in skin, smaller than a child but heavier than fear. Always she is grotesque, and always one detail returns, the iron teeth. They flash when she grins, catch the firelight when she threatens to devour. Teeth of iron mean hunger without end. Bone and flesh cannot resist them. To see them is to know that she has eaten before and will eat again. Another detail recurs. The leg of bone, Kostyanaya noga, her epithet in many tales. one limb stripped of flesh, bleached like a relic. She walks half in life, half in death, her very body a boundary. With one leg she stands in the human world, with the other in the grave. The epithet marks her not only as monster, but as threshold incarnate. She is already part of the land of the dead. When she walks, she drags its chill with her. Other features shift with the teller's disgust. A nose long enough to scrape the ceiling beams, breasts that flop like sacks, a backside broad as the stove, a vulva grotesquely detailed, swollen, animal, obscene. The tales linger on her repulsiveness, exaggerating it until she becomes the parody of a woman, all flesh turned grotesque. And yet, that very repulsion makes her powerful. She is not bound by beauty, by youth, by the roles that keep women in men's stories. She is the rejection of all such constraints, a body that devours rather than adorns. When visitors come, she lies sprawled across her bed, as if she's been waiting centuries for this moment. She inhales, her nose writhing upward until it brushes the smoke-blackened rafters. She does not need eyes to know them. She smells out the Russian scent, the living soul intruding into her realm. Her first words are always contempt. Fie, fi, the Russian smell was never here, but now it comes on its own feet. The phrase is both recognition and accusation. She knows what they are before they can speak. She names them as intruders, prey, petitioners, and then the question, are you here by your own will or by compulsion? A question repeated across stories, simple in wording, complex in meaning. It measures more than choice. It weighs courage, humility, resolve. The wrong answer marks a coward, a fool, or a liar. The right one, neither proud nor submissive, marks someone worthy of her trials. The question is the threshold, the first hinge of the test. Those who falter meet the stove. Those who answer well find themselves burdened with impossible tasks. The tasks are always cruel, always unachievable. Separate black poppy seeds from grains of wheat. Fetch water in a sieve without spilling a drop. Spin thread fine enough to pierce a non-existent needle. She sets them not to be solved by strength, but by patience, wisdom, or the help of unseen allies. Those who survive do not defeat her, they endure her. They learn that survival is not conquest but cunning, not defiance but adaptation. Those who succeed carry away her fire, her wisdom, her grudging respect. Those who fail burn or boil or vanish into her fence. Her body, her tools, her tasks, all are parts of one larger truth. Baba Yaga is the inversion of the domestic, the monstrous face of the maternal, the witch mother who feeds and devours in the same breath. She is both nourishment and annihilation, both protection and threat. She embodies the paradox that life and death are not opposites, but companions, turning together like the hut on its clawed feet. Her mortar flies because the hearth cannot hold her. Her broom erases because memory cannot tame her. Her leg of bone stands in death because she belongs there as much as here. This is why she endures. She is not a villain to be slain, not a helper to be thanked. She is the test itself, the measure of readiness, the face of the threshold. Her teeth, her nose, her grotesque body are not merely to frighten children. They are to remind all who hear her stories that the forest is not safe, that death is never far, that wisdom must be bought with terror. She is horror, but she is also necessity. Without her, there is no fire. Without her, there is no passage. Without her, there is no tale. Stories of Baba Yaga do not begin with her. They begin with the desperate, the exiled, the hungry, the cursed. She does not hunt the fields or the markets. She waits in her clearing. It is others who stumble upon her path, sent by malice, by fate, or by necessity. And so, her legend is written not only in her iron teeth, but in the trembling footsteps of those who dared to stand before them. Of all these seekers, none is more remembered than the girl called Vasilisa. Her tale begins not with the forest, but with a house filled with grief. A dying mother pressed a small wooden doll into her daughter's hands. Feed it, keep it near, and it will help you. A gift of intuition disguised as a toy. The mother died and the house grew cold. A father remarried, and the new wife brought with her 2 daughters sharp with envy. They hated Vasilisa's beauty, hated her quiet endurance. They set her to endless chores, hoping to grind her spirit into dust. Yet every night the doll stirred, tiny hands working while the girl slept, turning cruelty into survival. The gift of the dead mother lived. One night, when the household lamps were all extinguished, the stepmother declared that fire must be fetched. But there was only one place to seek it, deep in the forest, from Baba Yaga herself. The stepsisters refused, voices trembling with mock terror. So the task fell to Vasilisa. With the doll in her pocket, she stepped into the dark woods. The air closed around her. The path twisted. The trees leaned closer with each mile. She whispered to the doll, fed it crumbs, and its warmth guided her feet. At dawn, she saw the first rider, a man in white upon a white horse, galloping past. The sky blanched grey with his passing. At noon came another, red, blazing, his horse aflame with midday brilliance. By nightfall, the last rider thundered by, black as pitch, his mount devouring the light, plunging the forest into sudden night. Vasilisa saw and understood. These were not men, but forces, servants of the witch, riders of day, sun, and midnight. The world itself bent around her domain. And then, the clearing. The fence of bones, the skulls burning, the hut pacing on its clawed legs. The air throbbed with menace. The doll trembled in her pocket. But Vasilisa remembered the words. Hut, hut, turn your back to the forest, your front to me. The house groaned, stooped, lowered. The door gaped wide. She entered, and the air swallowed her whole. Inside lay Baba Yaga, stretched from corner to corner, her nose scraping the ceiling beams. Fee, fee, the witch snarled. The Russian scent was never heard here before. Are you here by your own will, or by compulsion? Vasilisa bowed, her voice steady though her heart rattled. By both, she said. The witch grinned, iron teeth flashing. Then you shall serve me. If you succeed, you will have fire. If you fail, I will eat you. The tasks began. Sweep the yard, clean the hut, prepare the meal, then the impossible. Take a heap of wheat, sand, and poppy seeds, and sort each grain into its own pile before dawn. Alone, no one could have done it. But the doll stirred, whispering, Do not fear. Feed me, sleep, and all will be well, Vasilisa obeyed. When she woke, the piles lay neat and perfect. Baba Yaga narrowed her eyes, but she could not deny the work. Day after day, the pattern repeated. Impossible task, despair, the doll's help, perfection by dawn. The witch fumed, but the ancient law bound her. She could not harm what had proved worthy. At last, Baba Yaga relented. You have done your work. Ask what you will, Vasilisa asked of the riders she had seen. The witch nodded. My white rider is day. My red rider is the sun. My black rider is midnight. These are my faithful servants. But when the girl asked nothing of the disembodied hands, the broom that swept itself, the secrets hidden within the hut, Baba Yaga smiled. Wise, she said. It is not well to know too much. For respect of mystery is itself a test. At last, the witch plucked a skull from her fence, its eyes burning with eternal fire. Take it, she commanded, and carry it home. This is the flame you came for. Vasilisa bowed low, the weight of judgment heavy in her hands. She returned through the forest, the skull lighting her path. When she reached her stepmother's cottage, the skull's eyes blazed brighter, turning upon the cruel women. The fire flared, unquenchable, and by dawn, nothing remained of them but black ash. Vasilisa buried the skull, and from that night forward, she lived free of their torment. This tale, recorded by Alexander Afanasiev in the 19th century, is not merely a story of cruelty avenged. It is a tale of initiation. The girl leaves home, faces the witch, submits to tests, and returns not as victim but as bearer of fire. Baba Yaga devours the unworthy, but she equips the worthy with power. She is destruction, but also transformation. Vasilisa's endurance, her respect for hidden knowledge, her reliance on intuition, all are proven in the crucible of the hut. Other seekers, too, crossed her path. Some were less fortunate. In the tale of the Maiden Tsar, Ivan, son of a merchant, sought his way across the thrice 10th kingdom. He found not one Baba Yaga, but 3, each in her spinning hut, each sniffing the air. Fie, fie, the Russian scent. Each demanded answers, each tested him. The youngest knew nothing, the second sent him further, and the third, oldest and fiercest, nearly devoured him outright. Only the gift of 3 horns, blown louder each time, summoned the birds to his rescue. From their wings rose the firebird itself, which bore him away as the witch snatched at its tail. She caught only feathers, which burned her hands with their light. These encounters show her many faces. Sometimes she is helper, granting gifts to the respectful. Sometimes devourer, teeth flashing, belly growling for flesh. Sometimes she is trickster, promising aid but twisting it with riddles. And sometimes she is judge, the skull fire burning away cruelty and lies. Always she is more than human. Always she waits at the boundary. The trials are not random cruelty. They are ordeals of worthiness. They measure endurance, wit, humility, respect for limits. Fail, and the fence grows taller. Succeed, and you carry her fire back into the human world. Every story follows this rhythm. Exile, trial, fire, return. Baba Yaga is the pivot of transformation. Without her, no journey completes. Without her, no hero is made. Not every traveler was Vasilisa, gentle and blessed with her mother's doll. Many who sought Baba Yaga were men, princes, wanderers, hunters, each sent by fate or compulsion, each forced to answer her riddle. Their stories remind us that the witch is never a single shape. She appears multiplied, doubled, tripled, an endless riddle unfolding across the dark forest. One of the oldest patterns is the tale of the 3 sisters. Ivan, the merchant's son, is told to seek the way to the thrice 9th kingdom. His journey carries him through the deep woods until he reaches the first impossible hut. Its legs shuffle and stamp. Its door turns away. Its fence burns with skullfire. He speaks the words. The hut groans, and the door opens. Inside, Baba Yaga lies sprawled, her nose bent into the ceiling beams. Fie, fie, the Russian scent, she hisses. Why have you come? Ivan bows, his voice steady, asking the way to the kingdom. The witch laughs, her teeth glinting like knives. I do not know, she says. Go to my sister. Perhaps she will answer. So he goes on. The forest deepens, darker, older. A second hut spins before him, the same fence, the same flaming skulls. Again the incantation, again the groan, again the monstrous figure stretched across the stove. The second Baba Yaga asks the same question, hears the same plea. I do not know, she admits, but my elder sister may. If she hungers for you, beg her for mercy. Take these 3 horns. If she prepares to eat you, ask to blow them, the first softly, the second louder, the third with all your breath. Remember, Ivan bows low and accepts the gift. The third hut waits at the edge of the world. Its legs claw the soil, its fence burns brighter than the others, and the air around it tastes of iron and frost. Inside lies the oldest Baba Yaga, her body stretched longer, her hunger sharper. She inhales, shrieks, and rushes to sharpen her teeth on stone. Fie, fie, the Russian scent, the scent of flesh and fear. Ivan trembles, but recalls the horns. He begs to play them before his death. She grants it, laughing. The first he blows softly, and sparrows flock to the windows. The second louder, and crows and ravens darken the sky. The third with all his might, and the air explodes with wings. Geese, swans, and at last the firebird itself. Its feathers blaze brighter than the skulls on the fence. "Climb," it commands, "or she will devour you." Ivan leaps. The bird carries him skyward, and Baba Yaga lunges, her claws catching its tail. She tears away only feathers which scorch her hands, leaving her with nothing but fire that burns her flesh. The tale reveals her layered nature. Each Baba Yaga is both obstacle and helper. Each hut another threshold. Each test another chance to falter or survive. Their multiplicity echoes the old pattern of the fates. The Moirai in Greece, the Norns in the north. 3 women, 3 stages, 3 dispensers of knowledge. Baba Yaga wears that mantle in Slavic forests, not cutting threads but weighing them, testing if they are strong enough to be pulled across the edge of the world. Other stories tell of those who faced her stove and tricked it. In one, a boy is seized and thrust onto a shovel, but he pleads ignorance. "I am too small. Show me how to lie properly." Amused, Baba Yaga climbs onto the shovel herself, sprawling to demonstrate. In that moment, the boy and his brothers shove her into the oven, slam the door, and heap wood upon it. The witch burns, shrieking, while her hands scrabble at the iron door until they fall still. Yet even in such tales, she is never fully destroyed. Her sisters return, her hut still spins, her name still waits in the mouths of children, whispered when the fire burns low. Some heroes come not to beg, but to steal. In one tale, a pair of sworn brothers, a blind man and a cripple, seek the waters of life. They capture Baba Yaga, binding her with iron chains, threatening to cast her into her own oven unless she reveals the way. She tricks them, first pointing to a fountain of flame meant to destroy. Only when pressed again, beaten, forced, does she yield the true path. Even in chains, she is treacherous, turning ordeal into deception. Yet the brothers succeed, proof that her knowledge, however unwilling, still guides the desperate. Always the pattern remains: task, ordeal, gift. Those who fail are swallowed. Those who succeed walk away transformed, carrying not just a skull or a horse or a word of wisdom, but the deeper weight of survival. Baba Yaga is less a character than a crucible. She tempers those who enter, burns away weakness, sends them out as something harder, sharper, more enduring. Her role as guardian of the thrice ninth kingdom, that mythic realm beyond the fiery river, beyond the 30 realms, makes her more than a witch in a hut. She is gatekeeper to the land of the dead. Her hut spins because the threshold itself is never still. It must turn, opening to some and closing to others. Those who stand at its door stand also at the border between life and what lies beyond. To knock, to speak the words, to endure her gaze is to place one foot already into the underworld. This is why she cannot be named simply villain. She devours, yes. She deceives, yes. But she also holds the keys to the next world. Without her, there is no passage. Without her, the hero never reaches the kingdom, never rescues the maiden, never brings back the treasure. She is the test, the toll, the threshold. She is as necessary as she is feared. And so the tales spread, not to comfort, but to prepare. Parents warn their children, do not wander into the forest, lest the hut find you. But also, when the day comes and you must face her, remember the incantation. Remember to bow. Remember to answer without pride. Remember to feed the doll, or listen to the bird, or take the horn when it is offered. For no one can live without facing Baba Yaga. In life or in story, her clearing waits for all. Baba Yaga is never only one thing. In every telling she shifts, stretches, multiplies. She is a witch who eats children, a wise woman who offers gifts, a monstrous crone sprawled across the stove, a divine judge who measures the worth of heroes. No tale captures her whole. Each is a shard of a mirror, cracked and scattered, reflecting one of her faces. To see her clearly is to gather those fragments, and even then, the image does not settle. It flickers, blurs, refuses to hold still. Vladimir Prop, the great scholar of Russian folk tales, once called her the donor, the one who sets the tasks, the one who grants the magical object when the hero succeeds. Yet the same figure who bestows fire or a horse also threatens to eat the petitioner alive. She is benefactor and predator in the same breath. This ambiguity is no mistake. It is her essence. Baba Yaga is not good. She is not evil. She is the test itself, the crucible through which the hero must pass. In one tale, she devours the weak without pity, sharpening her teeth on stone before sliding their bodies into the oven. In another, she gives the survivor a glowing skull whose fire destroys their enemies. In a third, she offers a magical horse that carries the hero beyond the reach of Koshchei the Deathless himself. To one visitor, she is death. To another, salvation. To both, she is necessary. The stories linger on her hunger. Iron teeth, they say, flashing when she smiles. A bony leg, proof of her kinship with the grave. These details root her in death. She is no mere old woman, but a being part flesh, part bone, already halfway gone to the underworld. Her devouring appetite is terrifying, yes, but it is also symbolic. Death consumes. It devours all. Baba Yaga wears that inevitability openly. She is the reminder that all stories, however bright, must end in the mouth of the grave. And yet, her generosity is equally profound. She does not give without cause, but when the hero proves worthy, she gives more than any mortal could offer. Fire that burns with judgment, horses that outrun death, knowledge of the paths that lead to the other world. She is the threshold guardian, and those who pass her ordeal emerge not only alive, but changed, bearing gifts that alter their fate. This duality, devourer and donor, makes her the most dangerous of allies, the most necessary of adversaries. Some tales show her as a judge, not merely deciding life or death in the clearing, but rendering judgment through fire itself. When Vasilisa returns with the skull, it does not simply light her way. Its gaze flares against her stepmother and stepsisters, burning them to ash. The fire is not random cruelty. It is justice, terrible and precise. The skull's flames punish wickedness, vindicate endurance. Baba Yaga herself may not speak the sentence, but the fire she bestows delivers it. In this role, she resembles the Fates. In Greek myth, the Moirai spun, measured, and cut the threads of life. In Norse myth, the Norns carved destiny into the roots of the world tree. In Slavic tales, the three Baba Yagas perform a similar function. Each sister tests the hero, each passes judgment, and the eldest delivers the final key. They do not cut the thread, but they stretch it, weigh it, decide whether it may cross into the thrice ninth kingdom. The parallel is too strong to ignore. Baba Yaga is not only witch or crone, she is fate, veiled in Slavic dress. Her multiplicity extends beyond tales of three. Andreas Johns, sifting through centuries of story, found her described as cloud, moon, death, snake, bird, goddess, mother. She is each and all, a cloud drifting across the sun, turning day to night. A moon that governs cycles of growth and decay. A snake that sheds skin. Death that devours, bird that flies between worlds. She is archetype more than individual, a figure that absorbs every shape and symbol of transformation. To describe her is to describe the forces that govern life itself. Still, her role is not cosmic alone. She is also profoundly intimate. Her house resembles a home, but twisted. Her tools are household objects, but inverted. Her body exaggerates the female form into grotesque. She embodies the uncanny, the familiar made monstrous, the hearth turned into oven of death, the cradle become mortar of pursuit, the broom that cleans now erases. She is the terrible mother, the devouring matriarch, the elder whose wisdom is edged with threat. She embodies what Freud would later call the uncanny, the homely rendered unhomely. That is why her tales unsettle so deeply. They turn the safe shapes of daily life into horrors. The ambiguity of Baba Yaga may be her truest essence. She does not offer easy answers, only contradictions. She will eat you if you falter, but reward you if you endure. She is grotesque and terrifying, but also indispensable. She terrifies children, but prepares them for adulthood. She embodies death, but grants the fire of life. In her, horror and wisdom walk together. That is why her legend has lasted. That is why her clearing still waits, still burns with skull lamps, still turns upon its clawed legs. The old storytellers understood. The witch is not villain alone. She is the teacher no one wants, the trial no one chooses. To face her is to face death itself, and to walk away carrying fire. Baba Yaga's stories often move like a pendulum. One moment she is the devourer sharpening her teeth on stone. The next, she is the stern teacher handing out fire or wisdom. The swing is not random. It is her nature to embody opposites, to hold contradictions without dissolving them. She is hunger and nourishment, cruelty and guidance, horror and justice. Each tale selects a different face, but all belong to her. The Slavic imagination often multiplied her. A single witch is terrifying. 3 standing in a line at the edge of the world are unbearable. Each one tests, each one refuses full knowledge, each one sends the traveler further. Only the last, the oldest, gives the final answer. This pattern of 3 reveals her kinship with ancient archetypes that stretch beyond the Slavic lands. The Greeks told of the moirai, the 3 who spun, measured, and cut life's threads. The Norse spoke of the Norns, who carved fate into the roots of Yggdrasil. Across Europe and beyond, powerful women appeared not alone, but in triads, wielding the authority of destiny. Baba Yaga's threefold presence is another version of this ancient truth. Destiny is not held by men with swords or kings on thrones, but by old women who measure and decide in shadows. Her triple aspect also mirrors the cycle of womanhood known across pagan traditions: the maiden, the mother, the crone. Baba Yaga is always crone, but her sisters hint at a progression, younger and older forms of the same archetype. The maiden is the one who departs on the quest. The mother may give the doll, the blessing, the small token of aid, and the crone waits in the forest to test, devour, or transform. She completes the circle, she closes the gate. To meet her is to face not only one woman, but the entire rhythm of life, condensed into a single terrible figure. Her ambiguity is sharpened by the details that storytellers emphasize. She stretches across her stove until her nose scratches the rafters, grotesque in her size. Her breasts hang heavy and obscene, her leg is bare bone, her teeth iron. These exaggerations mark her as monstrous, but they also encode symbols. The bony leg shows she straddles life and death. The iron teeth proclaim her appetite is endless, unsoftened by age. Her body is the caricature of age and femininity made terrifying. In her, the fear of decay, of death, of the uncontrollable female body gathers into one form. But the grotesque hides wisdom. Children are told to fear her, yet heroes find in her the very gifts that save them. She gives Vasilisa the fire that frees her. She grants Ivan the horse that outruns Koshai. She speaks the knowledge of time itself, embodied in her white, red, and black riders. These are not small gifts, they are cosmic in scope. She does not hand out coins or swords. She hands out dawn, noon, and night. Fire that burns with judgment. Steeds that defy death. What she gives with the weight of eternity. Her unpredictability keeps her alive in the imagination. She cannot be dismissed as villain, for villains are defeated. She cannot be praised as saint, for saints are worshipped. She exists between never conquered, never adored. In that between state lies her true strength. Every time a child hears her name, they learn that the world does not divide neatly into good and evil, safety and danger. There are figures who will test you, terrify you, and in the same moment save you. Baba Yaga is the story's way of telling that truth. When Andreas Johns catalogued her, he called her cloud, moon, snake, death, bird, goddess, mother. The multiplicity is overwhelming, but it matches her stories. She is cloud, drifting and shifting shape. She is moon, governing cycles of light and darkness. She is snake, shedding skins and slipping between realms. She is death, devouring all. She is bird, flying in her mortar across the treetops. She is goddess, a faded echo of divine power. She is mother, distorted and terrifying, a parent who teaches through ordeal rather than comfort. She is all these things because she must be. A single image cannot contain her. The fence of bones that circles her hut is another mirror of her ambiguity. To some it is terror, a reminder of the devoured. To others it is proof of justice, that evil deeds cannot escape the fire. A single post often stands bare, waiting for the next skull. This empty place is the story's warning. Your skull may be next, but it is also the hero's challenge. Fill the post or survive, perish or endure. The fence declares both doom and invitation. The gifts she grants carry the same double edge. Fire can warm a hearth or reduce a household to ash. A horse can carry the hero to freedom, but only after enduring her impossible tasks. Knowledge can save, but it can also destroy, as when Ivan nearly perishes by asking too much. Baba Yaga's gifts are never free and never safe. They are the kind of gifts that mark the recipient forever, branding them with the memory of the ordeal. Survivors of her hut are never quite human again. They have touched the other world, and it clings to them. This ambiguity is why her stories endure across centuries, why they survive even after Christian scribes tried to bury them under demonization. She was not erased because she could not be. A figure who embodies both life and death cannot vanish. She slips through cracks, survives in whispered tales, dances in woodblock prints, re-emerges in lullabies meant to frighten children. She endures because she is necessary. Without her, stories lose their edge, their teeth. Without her, the boundary between safe village and dangerous forest would be meaningless. To stand before Baba Yaga is to confront paradox itself. She is both the question and the answer, both the devouring mouth and the hand that passes the gift. Her cruelty is as purposeful as her generosity. Her fire destroys, but also illuminates. Her tests crush, but also reveal. That is her genius. She is not consistent, but she is constant. Always waiting in the clearing, always testing, always necessary. Long before she haunted films or novels, Baba Yaga's face was carved into wood. In 17th and 18th century Russia, cheap prints called lubki spread her image across villages and cities alike. They were crude, bright, and unsettling, sold in markets, pasted on walls, hawked by storytellers who pointed to the ink and told of the horrors it contained. To hold one was to see the forest's witch captured in lines of black and red, her body twisted into scenes both terrifying and absurd. One shows her astride a pig, hair wild, skirts flying, rushing to battle against a scaled beast labelled crocodile. Another depicts her dancing with a bald man who plays bagpipes, her crooked nose thrust forward, her teeth bared in laughter or threat. To modern eyes, these scenes appear comical. But behind their strangeness lurks something darker. The crocodile, some said, was Peter the Great himself, mocked by old believers who despised his reforms. Baba Yaga, perched on her pig, became Catherine, his foreign-born wife, sneered at as a Finnish woman. What looks like farce is a dagger drawn in satire. The witch turned into a weapon, her grotesque body mocking rulers, her dance a parody of power. The prints reveal a strange intimacy. Baba Yaga was not only feared in whispered tales told at night, she was also invoked openly, crudely, as symbol and satire. She became a tool for those who resisted authority, a mirror held up to emperors. In this way, she was never fully controlled. She could frighten children into obedience, but she could also laugh at kings from the woodcut page. Few figures wielded such freedom. Saints were fixed in their icons, frozen in gold leaf. Heroes were tamed in chronicles. Baba Yaga remained loose, volatile, uncontrollable, carved with a sneer that could not be erased. To see her in Lupki is to feel her sliding between meanings. Is she a literal witch, a devourer of children? Or is she a stand-in for something greater? Shaman, rebel, foreign queen, monstrous empress. Scholars argued even then. Dmitry Ravinsky, who studied these prints, called the crocodile a parody of Peter, the pig a symbol of mockery, the witch's dress a sneer at Catherine. Others saw in her a trace of the shaman's journey, riding beasts, contending with monsters, dancing on thresholds of worlds. Whether political parody or cultural echo, the image of Baba Yaga refused to stay still. She was both joke and omen, both entertainment and threat. But satire could not erase her darker resonance. For every market print that showed her dancing, there was another story whispered in kitchens of children stolen, bones piled, skulls lit with fire. The church too saw her not as a trickster to laugh at, but as a rival to crush. Pagan echoes clung to her too tightly. She was no harmless tale. She was a relic of an older belief, a goddess demoted but not destroyed. The priests warned, she is the devil's consort, a witch, a remnant of heathen darkness. Sermons painted her as caution, the wild woman beyond the cross, proof of what happens to souls untamed by Christ. In these condemnations, her uniqueness shone again. Other pagan deities were renamed, tamed, absorbed as saints or demons with familiar shapes. Baba Yaga stood apart, too strange for assimilation, left instead to haunt the margins. The people heard both voices, the priest's denunciation and the grandmother's whisper. In the church, she was cursed. In the hut, she was remembered. Children were told, "Do not stray into the woods, or Baba Yaga will smell your soul." Women muttered charms against her when they swept the threshold. Men returning late from hunts crossed themselves when the trees creaked too loudly. Fear kept her alive as surely as devotion had once fed the old gods. In time, her figure multiplied further. She was painted on Lubki not only as rebel or witch, but as something stranger, a shape between satire and spirit. One print shows her locked in battle with the crocodile while ships sail beneath, hinting at Peter's westernizing fleet. Another shows her cavorting with her bagpiper, a grotesque parody of domestic life. Even here, the fence of bones and the iron teeth haunt the imagination behind the joke. She may be ridiculous on the page, but in the night, her hut still turns, her stove still smolders. Satire does not erase the fear, it only displaces it. This is her genius. Baba Yaga survives by refusing to be one thing. When power mocked her, she became parody. When priests cursed her, she became devil. When children trembled, she became threat. When heroes prayed, she became benefactor. Always shifting, always adapting, never pinned down long enough to be slain. Few figures in folklore have such resilience. The gods of the Slavs were forgotten, their idols rotting in forests, their names preserved only in chronicles. Baba Yaga still breathes in every story told by firelight, in every child's shiver at the edge of the wood. Even the grotesque details the Lubki exaggerated, her nose, her gaping mouth, her wild skirts, are themselves a kind of survival. The more monstrous she appears, the more she resists being absorbed. She cannot be polished into saint or hero. She resists refinement. She belongs to the margins, to the grotesque, to the place where fear and laughter meet. That liminal ground is hers, as surely as the forest clearing. So when we look at these old prints, we see not only crude caricature, but a glimpse of her power. The people who carved her into wood could not erase her. They could only laugh nervously at her. The rulers she mocked could not silence her. She returned in whispers, in dreams, in the creak of trees at midnight. The priests who damned her could not banish her. She remained at the hearth, in lullabies, in the cautionary tales that shape children's nights. She endured because she was too much to kill. She endured because she could be everything at once: rebel, witch, goddess, joke, terror. The forest witch became a political parody, a grotesque satire, a target of sermons. And still, in the hidden heart of the woods, the hut turned, the skulls burned, and the witch lay across her stove, waiting for the next traveller to stumble upon her threshold. The Slavs were not alone in their fear of the old woman at the edge of the woods. Across Europe, across centuries, other names surfaced, other faces, all carrying echoes of Baba Yaga. She is singular, yes, unpaired even in Lomonosov's grammar, but her shadow stretches further than Russia's birch forests. Wherever winter pressed hard and forests loomed, there appeared a figure much like her, a woman old beyond reckoning, terrible in her hunger, terrible in her wisdom. Among the West Slavs, she was called Jerzy Baba. Her stories bled into the same soil, a woman both feared and courted, both witch and donor. She appears in Czech and Slovak tales, crooked of back, sharp of teeth, her hut less famous, but her menace the same. Sometimes she devours, sometimes she guides, but always she carries the same ambiguity. Scholars argue whether she is the same as Baba Yaga or only a cousin. But to those who told her stories, the difference did not matter. She was the danger in the forest, the test no one wanted, but all must endure. Further west, in Poland, she appears as Jędza, the hag with a nose like a beak, sharp and probing. In Romania, she takes the form of Muma Pădurii, the mother of the forest. Here, the emphasis falls less on her appetite and more on her role as guardian of the wild. Children straying too far from the village hear her voice in the trees, feel her fingers in the wind. She is not gentle. She seizes, she punishes, she terrifies. But she belongs to the forest, and through her, the forest speaks. To harm her is to harm the woods themselves. Move south, and she multiplies again. In the Balkans, she wears many names: Baba Roga, Baba Charisma, Gvozden Zuba, the iron-toothed. In some tales, she steals children. In others, she is the season itself, the harsh face of Lent, demanding abstinence, demanding reverence. Her teeth gleam iron, her hunger unrelenting. The children of Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia are told of her to keep them close to hearth, to keep them safe from rivers and trees that kill without pity. The details shift, but the warning is the same. Stray, and the old woman will take you. Even in Germanic lands, her sisters rise. In the Alpine regions, she is Perchta, or Frau Percht, a figure both rewarding and cruel. On Twelfth Night, she passes through villages, inspecting homes, punishing the lazy by slicing open their bellies and stuffing them with straw, rewarding the diligent with silver. She leads the wild hunt, a procession of spirits shrieking across winter skies. In her, one hears the same rhythm as Baba Yaga: cruelty as justice, generosity as terror, the old woman who is both devourer and benefactor. Frau Holle, too, lingers in German tales. She shakes her feather bed and snow falls upon the earth. She watches over industrious girls, rewarding their labor, punishing their idleness. To the frightened, she is monstrous. To the obedient, she is motherly. Her ambiguity marks her kinship with Baba Yaga. She is not angel, not devil, but something between, something older than either. Further north and west, across seas and mountains, she appears again as the Cailleach of Scotland and Ireland, a giantess with blue skin, carrying a hammer that freezes the ground. She is the architect of mountains and valleys, the bringer of winter, the old woman whose breath is frost. Like Baba Yaga, she belongs to no hearth, no church, no court. She belongs to the land itself, shaping it with her staff, striking it into silence. Her hunger is the hunger of winter itself, stripping flesh from bone, green from field, life from land. And when she retreats, spring returns. To list these names is to see a pattern. Jeji Baba, Genza, Muma Paduri, Baba Roga, Frau Holle, Perchta, the Cailleach. Each is distinct, shaped by language, by custom, by soil. But each is also the same, an old woman, terrifying, ambiguous, standing at the threshold between life and death, childhood and adulthood, wilderness and home. Their stories differ in detail, but their function is constant. They are guardians of the edge, initiators of the brave, punishers of the foolish, embodiments of the winter that strips away life so that spring may return. Some scholars trace Baba Yaga further still, to Finno-Ugric and Siberian traditions. Among the Karelian people lives Shurjatar, a devourer who shares Baba Yaga's hunger but not her generosity. In other tales, a figure called Akka, meaning old woman, appears as helper or wise guide, echoing Yaga's more beneficent side. The huts raised on stilted roots in these northern lands may have given shape to the witch's house. Practical structures to store food above the snow, transformed in memory into walking huts, clawed and spinning, waiting in clearings that never stay still. Each culture molds her to its fears, its winters, its forests, but together they show her to be more than local witch. She is archetype. She is the crone, the old woman of endings, the embodiment of cycles, the devourer who also renews. To meet her is to face death, and to face death is always to emerge changed. Whether called Yaga or Holle, Perchta or Cailleach, she is the ancient figure who reminds us that winter is necessary, that judgment is inescapable, that wisdom is not given lightly but purchased with fear. The Slavic Baba Yaga stands at the heart of this web. She has outlived the others in name and story, perhaps because she was never softened into saint or fairy. She stayed grotesque, stayed contradictory, stayed terrifying. And so she survived the centuries, while many of her sisters faded into whispers or rituals half remembered. Her hut still spins, her skulls still burn, her name is still spoken with unease. When the old women told stories by the hearth, they did not say, "This is only one tale." They said, "This is how it happens." And how it happens is always the same. A traveller strays, a hut turns, a question is asked, a fate is decided. Whether in Russia, Germany, or the highlands of Scotland, the forest clears and the crone waits. Her faces change, her names multiply, but her role never shifts. She is the old woman at the edge of the world, and all who live must reckon with her. Spring in the Slavic lands does not arrive with quiet blossoms. It comes with fire and drowning. Villagers drag a figure of straw through the streets, a woman-shaped effigy, clothed in rags, her face painted pale, her hair a tangle of hay. Children jeer, women spit, men strike her with sticks. At the riverbank, She is set alight, or flung into the black current, or both, burned and drowned at once. As the effigy sinks or smoulders, voices rise in rough chorus. Winter is dead. Death itself has been cast out. The ritual repeats year after year, a rhythm older than churches, older than ink. The figure they destroy is Marana, goddess of winter and ending, and in the sparks that leap from her straw body, in the hiss of her drowning, another shadow flickers, the shadow of Baba Yaga. Marana was once divine. She ruled the season of famine and frost, the months when fields hardened to stone and rivers crusted with ice. Her departure each spring was not always mockery. It was once worship, the acknowledgement that only by appeasing her could life return. The ritual of destruction was both sacrifice and homage. To kill her was to honor her cycle. But when Christianity spread, reverence became scorn. Marana shrank from goddess to effigy, from sovereign of death to straw doll hurled into water. And yet the people still feared her. They still shaped her in the likeness of an old woman. They still remembered that the cold breath of the year was hers. Baba Yaga carries Marana's traits like heirlooms. Her hut crouches in the dead forest. Her skulls blaze with winter fire. Her leg of bone marks her as half buried already. She is death not as abstract concept, but as figure. Personal, grotesque, relentless. Where Marana ruled the season, Baba Yaga rules the threshold. The one stripped fields bare, the other strips souls. But the lineage is clear. The witch of the hut is a memory of the goddess, translated into folklore, disguised as terror to survive the centuries. The echoes are not confined to Slavic soil. Across Europe, the same old woman reappears, shaping mountains, freezing rivers, leading hunts of the dead. The Kailich of the Scottish Highlands carries a hammer that strikes the ground into frost. Frau Holle shakes her feather bed and snow falls on the valleys below. Perchta passes through alpine villages in midwinter, punishing the lazy, rewarding the diligent, slicing open stomachs and stuffing them with straw. All are winter, all are judgment, all are old women with power too great for comfort. Each wears different clothing, speaks in different tongues, but together they form a chorus. Baba Yaga is their Slavic voice, shrill and unyielding. Her divine remnants hide in her details. The three riders, white for dawn, red for noon, black for midnight, are no ordinary servants. They are time itself, yoked to her will. No mere witch commands the turning of day. Her skulls burn with eternal fire, not wood flame but something colder, fiercer, unquenchable. That fire is both light and judgment, gift and execution. It is not the fire of a hearth, but of the cosmos. And her hut, perched on clawed legs, spinning endlessly, is not only grotesque, it is the very image of liminality, a shrine that stands between worlds, a threshold that opens only when summoned. These are fragments of goddesshood, scattered but still glowing. To the priests who wrote her into sermons, she was devil's bride, witch, demon. They tried to pin her down, to fold her into categories they understood. But their words betray unease. Ordinary witches could be burned, ordinary demons banished. Baba Yaga remained. She was not a servant of Satan, but something older, something outside that binary. She needed no master, she was her own law. That independence, terrifying, feminine, untamed, was precisely what made her dangerous to the church. She could not be rewritten as saint, nor dismissed as fantasy. She persisted, half cursed, half revered, muttering through the mouths of old storytellers who refused to forget. Think again of the ritual at the river. Straw woman dragged, mocked, drowned, burned. The people laugh, but their laughter is nervous. They destroy her because they fear her. They burn her because they believe her power is real. The same fear clings to Baba Yaga's stories. Children are told them to tremble, but also to prepare. For the witch is not only punishment, she is necessity. Without winter, there is no spring. Without death, there is no life. Without the ordeal of Baba Yaga, there is no fire to bring home, no transformation to endure. In this way, she is the goddess in exile. Stripped of temples, robbed of worship, she survives in folklore, in grotesque exaggeration, in whispers around the stove. Her teeth are iron now, her leg is bone, her hut is monstrous. But these are disguises, layers of horror wrapped around something older. At her core still burns the flame of the Great Mother, bringer of endings, teacher of thresholds, keeper of cycles. She is no longer bowed to, no longer prayed to. She is feared, and in fear lies survival. Snow remembers footsteps even when people do not. In the Northlands, hunters speak of nights when the sky rings like iron and something large passes above the tree line without leaving a track. They say it is the witch in her mortar, steering with the pestle, sweeping the air clean with her birch broom. The story sounds like winter, boasting until you listen for the older rhythm underneath. The drumbeat of rites that once shook the ground, the pulse of women striking pestles into earth to wake it. The chant of grain turned to flour, flour turned to bread, bread turned to life. Baba Yaga carries those rites inside her like embers, though the hearth that fed them has long since gone dark. Shamanic threads run through her as plainly as smoke through spruce. The old travelers who crossed the forests where the Slavs met the Finno-Ugric and Siberian peoples told of huts raised on stumps with roots splayed like claws, storehouses lifted above snow and wolves. From a distance, they looked like cabins on legs. A practical solution grew into a vision, a dwelling that could walk, choose, turn its door where it willed. In those same regions, shamans beat drums until their souls loosened, then rode birds, reindeer, or wind into the other world to bargain with spirits. Baba Yaga's mortar is such a vehicle, only harsher, not a bird to carry the soul, but a bowl to grind it fine enough to pass between worlds. Her tools conduct more than flight. They conduct change, mortar and pestle crush, break, powder, acts of destruction that are also preparation. The seed must be broken to feed the village. In her keeping, the breaking goes deeper. Pride is ground to patience, fear to endurance, ignorance to a smaller, truer shape. The broom finishes the rite, erasing tracks like a priest wiping the altar clean. After a night in her hut, the path behind a visitor is gone. What remains is forward, and forward means you will not be the same. Many tellings linger on her question, of your own will or by compulsion, as if it were a threat her iron teeth could answer. It is closer to a ritual inquiry. Shamans asked themselves similar things before they began. Do I descend because I choose to, or because the spirits drag me? The safest journeys declare their purpose at the threshold. Baba Yaga compels the declaration, not because she needs the words, but because the speaker does. A will spoken aloud binds itself more strongly to the spine. Inside her clearing, transformation moves in concentric rings. First the fence, then the hut, then the stove, last of all, the witch. The skulls at the border give light with no heat, like stars close enough to blind. Cross that circle and time kinks. Day, noon, and midnight arrive on horseback whenever she calls them. Cross the threshold and the stove breathes. Some who entered swore they heard whispers in the flue, as if the oven kept a choir. What baked there was not merely bread or men, but intention. She tests it, leaches out the weakness, hardens what endures. Survive the oven, and the world will taste different afterward, sharper at the edges, brighter in the dark. Christian chroniclers looked upon these same instruments and saw only the devil's workshop. Where villagers once glimpsed a rite of passage, the new scribes recorded a crime. The mortar became a flying cauldron of witches, the broom a sign of Sabbath, the stove turned into a maw of hell, and the woman who presided, alone, sovereign, accountable to no husband or priest, could only be an enemy of the church. Names changed faster than villages. The old rites did not stop. They went indoors and underground, into the mouths of grandmothers and the hands of midwives. Baba Yaga is what happens when a goddess of threshold survives inside a culture that forbids thresholds to speak. Look at the riders again. White, red, black. Dawn, noon, midnight. Colors of bone, blood, and void. In the Polish of a scholar, they map neatly to time. In the breath of a tale, they feel like a liturgy. She calls, and the world obeys. If this is witchcraft, it is witchcraft dragged from a chapel not built of stone. The forest is her nave, the skulls her candles, the turning hut her bell. When she plucks a skull from the fence and forces it into a traveller's hands, she is making communicants of those who pass. Some receive that fire and live. Some drink and are consumed. The old shamans descended into dark to bargain for a single life. Baba Yaga does the same, but she bargains by refusal. She will not go out to the village. She requires the village to come to her. Those who reach her have already sacrificed comfort. Those who kneel have already admitted need. Refusal is itself instruction. She is not mother, not saint, not patron, she is a door. Doors are generous when their hinges are clean and the knock is true. Accounts of her tricks. Show me how to lie on the shovel, grandmother. Let me blow the horns. Read like parables of technique. She is not omniscient. She is old. Old things have habits. Habit is a handle for the desperate to grasp. When boys trick her into the oven, when sworn brothers wring from her the path to the waters of life, the lesson is not that Baba Yaga can be beaten. The lesson is that ordeal invites cunning, and cunning is a virtue at thresholds. A goddess of passage will not reward stupidity. The oven burns flesh, stupidity burns chances. Christianity did not only demonize, it inverted. Midwives who knew the hinge bones of pelvis and the timing of breath, who called on herbs by old names and whispered to laboring women as if they were crossing a river, found the river renamed sin and their whisper called witchcraft. Baba Yaga absorbed their shapes, the knowing hands, the hard counsel, the ruthless pragmatism about life and death. In stories, she presides over children, births, trials, but always with iron in her smile. She is the midwife of the self. The price for new life is labor, and labor hurts. No wonder sermons preferred gentler saints. There is a story some tell in winter towns when the power fails and the whole street turns to candles. An old woman knocks, uninvited, and asks for a hearth. The family lets her warm herself. She sits too long, stares too hard, and asks for a cup of water. The father brings it in a sieve, and she laughs without mirth until the mother rises, covers the mesh with spiderweb, and returns with the water held like a second moon. The old woman nods, sets down a skull that burns, and leaves. In the spring, a child is born in that house without fever. This is how folklore keeps what theology discards, by making the rite a visit and the doctrine a kindness. Beyond the Slavic world, traces of her shamanic shape linger in women who cross between roles. Holler shakes feathers and snowfall answers. Perchta lifts a knife and opens bellies to reveal straw where laziness has nested. Then she sews them shut again, a surgeon of morality. The Kailach walks mountains with a staff that freezes rivers. These are not merely house witches. They are functionaries of season and soul, administrators of passage. Baba Yaga's mortar and broom sit in that company with perfect comfort. A threshold guardian must know how to refuse. She must be capable of harm. Otherwise, the crossing means nothing. The skull fire that judges Vasilisa's household is cruel, and it is correct. The brothers who force Yaga to reveal the living waters are brutal, and the knowledge they extract heals. Folklore makes room for both truths at once. Morality that lives only in churches is fragile. Morality that can walk through a dark wood has teeth. When the hut finally turns its door and the question is asked, The old rites rise to the surface like drowned bells. Speak your will. Name your need. Accept that the work will hurt. Accept that the reward will brand you. Do not overreach. Do not ask about the disembodied hands. Respect what is hidden. These are not rules of piety, they are techniques for crossing. Behind them stands a memory of a time when the world's edges were tended by powers with no interest in comfort, and every interest in truth. The fireplace of modern houses still remembers. A gust in the flue sounds like whispering. A pot left simmering sings a note that makes the hairs on the arms stand up. Children dream of a door that turns away until a phrase is spoken, just so. These echoes are small, but they are everywhere. A goddess in exile requires no temple. She needs a threshold and a story. Give her those, and she will do what she has always done. Grind the proud to meal, sweep the path behind the brave, and send the worthy back into the world, carrying a light that looks like fire and behaves like judgment. Winter settles differently in the forest than in the fields. In villages, the snow softens rooftops and muffles dogs barking. In the forest, it sharpens sound, carries it farther. A branch snaps miles away, and you hear it as if beside you. Breath smokes in the air and refuses to vanish, hanging in the dark as though the forest keeps it. That is where she waits. Always she waits. Hut spinning, skulls burning, broom leaning, mortar resting heavy by the door. The witch, the crone, the goddess in exile. The one who devours, the one who gives, the one who judges. Her stories have never ended because they are not truly stories. They are rehearsals. Every tale of Vasilisa, every tale of Ivan, every boy who tricks her into the oven, every brother who wrings her secret from her lips. Each is a version of the same encounter, the human soul standing at a threshold too vast for comfort. Baba Yaga is that threshold given flesh. She tests, she devours, she transforms. To meet her is to die in one sense and be reborn in another. The fence around her hut makes this plain. A barrier of bone crowned with skulls lit by cold fire. Each lamp was once a visitor. Some came seeking knowledge. Some came sent by cruelty. Some stumbled by mistake. All were tested. The flames in the sockets burn with their memory. The empty post burns brightest of all, for it waits for you. That is her promise. Every story warns. Her fence is unfinished, and it always hungers for one more. But the skulls do not burn without reason. They are not trophies alone. They are lanterns of judgment. Recall the skull given to Vasilisa. It lit her way home, yes, but it also judged her enemies. Its flames soar through false smiles, through cruelty, dressed in household chores, through the laughter of stepsisters. Fire poured from its sockets, consuming them until nothing remained but ash. This is Baba Yaga's gift, not fire to warm, but fire to reveal, judgment cloaked in flame. The same object that destroys also saves. That is the double edge of her power. Her gifts are always double-edged. The horse that outruns Koshai's steed carries a hero to triumph, but only because the hero survived her trials. The horns that summon birds rescue Ivan from her teeth, but only because he remembered to blow them with the right breath. The advice she offers is often a warning disguised as scorn. Do not ask too much, do not look too closely. Wisdom in her mouth tastes like insult, but it keeps the soul alive. This is why scholars have struggled to name her. Prop called her donor. Others called her devourer. Some saw her as the terrible mother. Others as the faded goddess. Andreas Johns catalogued her as moon, cloud, bird, snake, goddess, mother, fate. But she refuses to be pinned down. She shifts from story to story. She multiplies into three sisters. She shrinks to a hag, swells to a giantess. Her ambiguity is not weakness. It is survival. She cannot be destroyed because she cannot be defined. Each attempt to cage her in words only adds another mask to her collection. History tried to erase her too. The priest denounced her as devil's consort. The lubki mocked her, turned her into satire, made her dance with crocodiles and bald men with bagpipes. The state tamed her in cartoons, reduced her to comic villainy, a foil for obedient Soviet children. And yet behind each disguise, the hut still turned, the fence still burned, the crone still lay across her stove. She survived parody because fear and laughter are closer than they appear. Both are ways of remembering. Both keep her alive. Even art could not resist her. When Mussorgsky composed pictures at an exhibition in 1874, one of the pieces was titled "The Hut on Fowl's Legs." His piano thundered, shrieked, pounded, trying to catch the sound of the impossible house clattering across roots. The music is not gentle, it does not charm, it terrifies. It captures the speed of her flight, the violence of her mortar pounding through the air. The witch had leapt from folktale into concert hall, from forest to Europe's elite salons, and she arrived still monstrous. Later, she walked again into popular culture. In films, her name was mistranslated, misused, turned into shorthand for unstoppable terror. In games, her hut became a quest, a dungeon, a machine walking on claws. In Soviet cartoons, she was a buffoon. In modern fantasy, she is oracle, villain, grandmother of monsters. She adapts, she survives, she refuses extinction. Every age makes its own Baba Yaga, and every age is haunted by her. But beneath every adaptation lies the same truth. She is guardian of thresholds. She stands where paths end, where childhood collapses into adulthood, where life surrenders to death. She is the necessary ordeal. Without her, the hero's story has no fire, no wisdom, no edge. Without her, the village is safe, but shallow. With her, the village trembles, but children grow into survivors. She terrifies because she teaches. She teaches because she terrifies. The circle turns, like her hut, endlessly. Consider again her question. Of your own will or by compulsion? It is not only asked of Vasilisa or Ivan. It is asked of all who cross into the forest. It is asked of all who grow, who change, who must endure trials they did not choose. The witch names aloud what every ordeal demands. Are you here because you chose or because you were driven? The answer, in truth, is always both. That is what it means to be human, compelled by fate, choosing within compulsion. Her question is not trap, but mirror. In answering, you declare who you are. And so she endures because she is not merely a character. She is process, she is initiation. She is the trial that strips away pride and fear and leaves only what can endure. She is the fire that kills cruelty and lights the path. She is the hunger that devours weakness and reveals strength. She is the old goddess in exile, but exile does not weaken her. It hides her long enough to sharpen her teeth. Modernity has not tamed her. When children hear her story, their eyes still widen, their breath still catches. When forests creak in the night, the thought still rises unbidden. Perhaps the hut turns, perhaps the skulls burn. The effigies of Marana are still drowned in rivers. The name of the Kailich is still whispered in Scotland when frost bites too hard. The wild hunt still gallops in winter storms. Baba Yaga is not alone. She is part of a choir of old women who refuse to be forgotten. But she is the loudest, the one whose mortar still grinds the air, whose broom still erases the path, whose hut still turns on clawed feet. Stories end, but hers does not. She waits in every dark wood, every abandoned house, every creak of rafters at midnight. She waits in every trial a person must endure, every loss that strips them bare, every ordeal that remakes them. Her fire is judgment, but also transformation, Her hunger is terror, but also necessity. Her ambiguity is not flaw, but truth. For life itself is ambiguous, cruel and generous, devouring and sustaining, monstrous and beautiful. Picture it. A traveler stumbles at dusk, far from home. The trees close in. The air smells of smoke and iron. A clearing opens. A fence gleams white with bones, skulls burning cold and bright. The hut turns, creaking, claws gouging the soil. The door swings wide. Inside, a shape stretches across the stove, a nose scratching the rafters, teeth glinting like knives. The voice rasps, ancient and mocking. Fie, fie, the scent of the living. Did you come of your own will, or by compulsion? The answer does not matter. The fence waits, the fire waits, the gift waits, and the hut will keep turning, long after you, long after me, long after every empire has fallen.